Okay, so I'm going to teach you about exponents, and so I'm just going to teach you this. So we have negative 0.257 to the 0 power. Well, you need to know anything to the 0 power is 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1, and the opposite of 2.57 to the 0 power is going to be negative 1, okay? Because it's the opposite of anything to the 0 power of 2.57 to the 0 power. So remember, anything to the 0 power is going to be 1. Okay, now we're going to look at negative exponents. So when you have negative 5 to the negative 2, negative 5 to the negative 2. So with a negative exponent, first of all, you don't want to have a negative exponent. Okay, so when it's raised to a negative exponent, that means it's got to be a fraction. So this actually, to change that negative exponent to a positive, you put it as a fraction and you put that as a denominator. And now that exponent becomes a positive. So we have 1 over negative 5 to the 2nd power. And now we can simplify it even more. Well, we know negative 5 to the 2nd power is negative 5 times negative 5, which is 25, because a negative times a negative, remember, is a positive. So our answer here is 1 over 25. So negative 5 to the negative 2nd power is 1 over 25. Let's do another one. So if we have 2 to the negative 6, so we have a negative exponent here, and remember, to change the negative exponent to a positive exponent, we write it as a fraction, 1 over 2 to the 6, and then we say, well, what is 2 to the 6? That's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. I think that's 6, whatever, multiplying repeatedly by 2 is 6 times. And I think that is 64. So this answer would be 1 over 64 as the final answer. Okay. Here it actually wants you to find the missing number. So 4n to the what power would give you 4n squared. Well, if you notice the difference here, that n squared became in the denominator. So that means that this would be a negative exponent, and it's the same number. So the actual missing number here is negative 2. 4n to the negative 2 equals 4 over n squared. So that 2 doesn't change. We just know it's a negative exponent up here because it's in the denominator here. Another one, if we have a to what power? Okay, for this one, let's do the b first because of the question mark. We noticed that it went from a denominator to the numerator. So I haven't taught you this yet, but for negative exponents, if it's in the denominator, the negative exponent, you can make it a positive exponent by putting it to the numerator. So if it's in the numerator, you switch it to the denominator. If it's in the denominator, you switch it to the numerator to make that exponent positive. So since it became a positive 3, we know that this down here had to be a negative 3, okay? So it equals b cubed over 3. But then we're like, well, how do I get rid of, or how did this 3 stay on the bottom here, but the a was gone? There's no a in my final answer. Well, a to the what power would give you 1, because technically there's a 1 right here in front of that b, right? But we just don't ever write it because it's always understood. Well, how do I make a just go to 1? Because that 3, this moved up here, but the 3 just stayed the same, and there's nothing else there, so obviously a became a 1. So a to the 0 power becomes a 1, just giving you a to the 0 over 3b negative 3 will simplify to b cubed over 3. Let's do one more for negative exponents so you can understand negative exponents. So when you have negative 4 to the negative 3, remember to change this to a positive since it's in the numerator, because it is in the numerator, because we can put anything over 1 and it's a fraction. So we need to put this in the denominator to make it a positive exponent. So 1 over negative 4 to the third power. Now we can simplify it. Negative 4 to the third power. 4 times 4 is 16. Then 16 times 4 is 64. Yep. So 64. So that would be 1 over negative 64, because negative 4 to the third power is negative 64. Now, like I said, in your final answer, you cannot have a negative exponent. So I want you to simplify this. This negative exponent goes with the x. So the 5 would stay on top, would stay the same, but the x would now move to the denominator to make that a positive exponent. So 5x to the 4th. Another one like that would be 1 over x to the negative 7. So the negative exponent is down here on the denominator. To make that a positive exponent, we're going to move it to the top. So my final answer here would be x over 7. And we don't need the 1 because 1 times anything is just itself. Okay, so that's simplified there. If we want to simplify this, we just need to make sure we simplify everything. First of all, we're going to simplify the negative exponents. So the x squared stays on top because it's already a positive exponent. But we're going to change the 2 to the negative 3 down to the denominator, and it'll be 2 to the third. And then this z to the negative 7 will also move down to the denominator to be z to the 7th. We can actually simplify this even more because we have 2 to the third, which is 8. So our final answer will be x squared over 8z to the 7th. Okay? X squared over 8z to the 7th. Okay, when you're simplifying, just like I said before, you want to always start with the negative exponents, and then we can simplify even more after that. So we see t to the negative 5, so that's going to move down to the bottom. And we see 2 to the negative 1st, so that's going to move up to the top. So let's rewrite that. So 2 to the 1st, it becomes a positive exponent, times 7, and then we have s to the 0, and then all over m squared, and then the t to the 5th moves down. We can't simplify the denominator anymore because we don't know what the variables are, but we can simplify the top because 2 to the 1st is just 2, and 2 times 7 is 14, and we know s to the 0 is 1, so 14 times 1 is just 14, so we have 14 over m squared t to the 5th. So that would be our final answer. Okay, let's say that we have this 2 to the negative 4th times negative 3 to the 3rd times 5 to the negative 2nd. First of all, you want to always simplify the negative exponents again. So this 2 to the negative 4 will become down in the denominator, and it'll just become 2 to the 4th times 5 squared. And then that negative 3 to the 3rd will just stay on top since it's already a positive exponent. Now we just got to do it. Negative 3 to the 3rd is a negative 27 because that's negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. And then 2 to the 4th is 16. And then 5 second is 25. I'm going to cheat here with my calculator. Not really cheat. I'm just going to plug it into my calculator. 16 times 25 is 400. So my final answer is negative 27 over 400.